What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beasts Voyager class Optimus Prime. The figure is unfortunately a buzzworthy Bumblebee exclusive, which to me at least makes absolute zero sense considering Optimus is undoubtedly one of the most anticipated Studio Series releases for 2023. But anyways, we very quickly check out the box art. Because he is a part of that buzzworthy Bumblebee subline, the packaging looks awful. You know, definitely one of the ugliest Studio Series boxes that I think we've so far seen, but we do get a pretty sick CG render of Prime based on the movie here along the side, as well as some incredible, very promising product shots of him in both robot and truck mode. You know, at the moment, this may be the best looking Studio Series Optimus Prime, which I think we've so far seen, and we also get a pretty cool kind of CG render of Optimus Primal here on the left hand side. So, all that being said, let's get this guy out here and show you guys the true power of a Prime. And here we have the Rise of the Beast Studio Series Optimus Prime, and to tell the truth, guys, for this being a Voyager, it's actually kind of breathtaking just how much they were able to accomplish, especially with the robot mode. I mean, when I did my initial announcement video on this, where I kind of reacted to some of the first official in-hand images of this guy, I was absolutely blown away. I mean, the improvement between this and the Studio Series 38, at least in robot mode, is crazy looking. I mean, this guy, I'd go as far as saying, is maybe even better looking than the Masterpiece version, and it all started off by being a retool of the SS38, but surprisingly for the most part, besides the wheels and I believe the windshield, this guy is completely brand new. So yeah, just an incredible looking figure. But as we get stuck into the details, such an amazing looking head design. I think this is probably one of the nicest Voyager Optimuses based on this kind of design that we've so far seen, because the amount of detail they were able to pack into that mouthpiece alone just looks super awesome. My only issue with the figure in robot mode would have to be the smokestacks. Personally, I just think maybe they look a little too big, and it would have been awesome to have been given the option to rotate them so they could have been kind of slanting backwards. I just think that would have looked a little cooler. But as we check out the details that we have here for the shoulders, overall just looking so sick, and it's so cool to see them kind of spruce up that chest with a bit of nice gunmetal grey. Unfortunately, that was something that was kind of lacking with the mainline version, so yeah, that's pretty awesome. Not the biggest fan of how this central piece kind of juts out from the rest of the torso, but yeah, definitely not the end of the world. And the arm kibble management is way nicer than both the Masterpiece version of the B-Movie Prime and even that SS38, because yeah, that looks super sick. But as we just come down here to the thighs, this guy's pretty stacked. I mean, to tell the truth, I haven't really been able to find any hollow spaces on him at all, besides this tiny bit of gappage that we have on the back of the bicep. So yeah, just all in all, such a sick looking figure, and much like SS38, he does have a completely sculpted backpack, which looks super awesome. So we do kind of retain the spinal column from the Bumblebee movie Optimus design, which all in all, I just think looks great, and the foot design is so much nicer, and because the transformation is basically completely brand new, the legs don't want to continuously self-combust. They do hold together pretty nicely, which is awesome, and yeah, just overall, in terms of detail, such a stunning looking figure. Now, as we get stuck into the articulation, so glad to see an amazing range looking upwards. You know, that was one of the biggest issues I had with both the mainline and the SS38 version of Prime. It can also look down, tilt side to side, as well as rotate left to right. The shoulders will rotate the full 360, although I'm going to be honest with you guys, I absolutely hate the way they've been engineered in terms of going back and forth. I mean, as you can see, he literally wants to smack himself into the head. So, in some ways, I do wish maybe they could have borrowed the engineering from the original Bumblebee movie Optimus, just where the shoulder department is, because yeah, this doesn't look too clever. But we do get a pretty decent bicep rotation, surprisingly a double jointed elbow, despite this only being a Voyager release, which is awesome. We do get a wrist rotation, as well as a proper waist joint, and check this out, an actual ab crunch on a mainline Voyager Optimus Prime. Now, granted, from a few angles, it does look a little wonky, but I'm going to take it. You know, it's a point of articulation, and it really does help you to kind of get this guy into some slightly more dynamic action poses. Now, as we get stuck into the hip joints, the skirt pieces, at least out to the sides, can flare outwards, which is pretty cool. The way they've been engineered, initially I thought they were on a drop-down hinge joint in addition to the hip joint, but it is simply just a drop-down hinge. So by that, what I mean is the range of motion kicking forwards is absolutely fantastic. I mean, check out that high kick, way nicer than the vast majority of any Voyager figure, let alone from the Studio Series. So yeah, that's pretty sick, but considering it doesn't have an additional hip joint, the range of motion going backwards is very limited. I mean, it basically goes to that far, so yeah, that does kind of suck, but we do get a pretty decent kick going out to the sides. There is a bit of thigh rotation, a very nice sturdy knee joint which can bend slightly past 90, and the foot articulation is just off the charts, so it can rock forwards and backwards on a ball joint. It will also rotate the full 360, and you can use the ball joint as well as the hinge joint to get a wicked range rocking side to side, which is super awesome. So yeah, overall in terms of robot mode, besides a few qualms that I have with kind of this midsection and the shoulder pieces, I do think this guy is near enough a 10 out of 10 Studio Series Optimus, and despite him being an exclusive, I do think he still has a pretty decent amount of paint smacked onto him. Now, as we get stuck into accessories, I'm so glad to be filming this review after the official reveal for the Leader Class Optimus Primal, as one of my initial biggest complaints with this guy was that he wasn't going to include the Energon axe, which we saw heavily featured in the Rise of the Beast movie, but luckily that will be an additional accessory which we'll see with the upcoming Leader Class, which is just going to be awesome because we see Prime slice and dice so many Terracons in the film with that Energon axe. But anyway, back to this figure, he does include kind of the arm cannon attachment. Now, to be honest with you guys, this needed to be, I'd say, 5 times bigger than it actually is, and maybe had come with an additional forearm piece, because in the film, basically the entire forearm of Prime does convert and kind of mass shift into this massive cannon, whereas this, yeah, just isn't cutting it. But I mean, it's been pretty decently sculpted, you know, unfortunately no paint on it at all, but in terms of the way you integrate it, it's actually kind of cool, and to be honest, it doesn't matter which side you peg this on, as both of them work in exactly the same way. But you're going to want to take this grey section, hinge it out slightly, we can then take the fist and rotate this backwards, which will expose a big port which we can just snap this into, and you can tell Primal to stand down. I won't ask a second time. And whilst it definitely is much smaller than what we saw in the movie, I'm gonna be honest, it does look way nicer in person than how it originally came across in some of those initial product shots. But if you own the Studio Series Bumblebee movie Optimus, the Ion Blaster from that figure I personally think looks 10 times more badass pegged onto this guy than this little arm cannon that we have here for the Rise of the Beast Optimus. But that's not it, because as you guys all know, I'm a massive fan of the live-action Michael Bay movies, so to see the return of the Energon blades, not only in the film, but here for this Optimus, is super sick. And in contrast to the cannon, this has been completely painted in a really nice metallic silver, and surprisingly, pretty decently detailed as well. Now, there are a few ways in which you can peg this onto this guy, so you can have him holding this, much like we saw in Transformers Dark of the Moon. You can make use of this peg and slide it into this slot on the arm. Personally, I don't think that's the best way to integrate it into this guy, because you can use this blue peg and slide it into this tiny notch, much like we saw in the movie where the blade kind of shoots out the side of the forearm, and yeah, that looks so awesome. And again, much like the Energon axe, we see him use this so much in the film, so yeah, that's really cool. And both of these weapons can be stored away on the back. You know, you can make use of these 2 tiny little circular ports that we have here, so I thought that was pretty awesome. So all in all, accessories definitely are great, and it's going to be even better once we do see the release for that Leader Class Primal. Now, as we get stuck into a few comparisons, here we have the Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime alongside the Bumblebee movie version, which, at least in terms of my own personal collection, for the longest time since its initial release, has remained as being the best Studio Series Optimus Prime to date. But gonna be honest, I think at least in terms of robot mode, the Rise of the Beast Prime may have just gone ahead and dethroned him, because I do just like the slightly more slender, streamlined proportions that we're seeing here out of the Rise of the Beast Optimus, because it does just seem to be slightly more accurate. But that's not to say that there aren't still things which I much prefer on the B-movie version, because, for example, I like the torso way nicer on this release than I do here on Rise of the Beast. I think the shoulders and the length of the smokestacks, again, is much better here for the Bumblebee version, and there are also quite a lot of positives that the B-movie version has in vehicle mode over the truck mode for the Rise of the Beast release. But as we just turn them here to the side, you know, for something which initially started off as being a retool of SS38, they did a fantastic job in essentially giving us a complete brand new mold. I mean, even as we turn them here to the back, look at the kibble management on the back of the arms. You know, Rise of the Beast does just do it way nicer than what we saw for the B-movie version. You know, there's kind of a missed opportunity with this design. It's not so much an issue with Hasbro, more of an issue with Paramount and the designers of the characters, but considering both Optimus and Bumblebee have off-road forms in the sense they kind of have roll cages, it would have been super awesome to have seen that actually integrated into the robot mode, because I know one of the biggest complaints that many people had with this Rise of the Beast Prime design was that he was slightly too slim rim in the torso area. So, you know, had they smacked or found a way to have integrated that ball bar into this design, I think that would have looked a lot cooler. But yeah, at least in terms of action figure, Rise of the Beast Prime definitely takes the win in my opinion. Here he is compared alongside the mainline / movie line version of Rise of the Beast Optimus, and yeah, there's no competition at all. Once again, Studio Series for the win. It pretty much decimates the look of the mainline version, but to be honest, just as an individual standalone Voyager Optimus, I still think this figure has a lot going for it. You know, it is an enjoyable, fun figure to mess around with, but just to show you guys how they stack up from the side, the Studio Series version literally dwarfs the mainline version. I mean, here at least, it looks like we're dealing with a leader compared to a Voyager, so yeah, crazy scaling difference, but here is how they stack up from the back. So again, way nicer on the Studio Series version when in comparison to the movie line release. Here is how he fares up alongside the mainline version of Voyager Optimus Primal. So unfortunately, a little too small, especially if you were to go by movie accuracy. So yeah, this is definitely a case where the upcoming leader class version is 1000% going to look a little nicer alongside the Studio Series Prime. But much like the mainline Prime, you know, this mainline Primal is still an incredibly fun, enjoyable standalone figure on its own. So I won't go ahead and write it off just yet. Here he is compared alongside the Rise of the Beast Studio Series Battle Trap, and from that very notable sequence that we see these two guys together in, yeah, this does appear to be pretty smack onto the movie. And for a few quick fire comparisons, here he is stacked up alongside the Studio Series Voyager class Cheetor, Rhinox, Deluxe class Bumblebee, and I think we may just be looking at our best Optimus Prime and Bumblebee released so far for the Studio Series line. Deluxe class Air Razor, movie line Wheeljack and Mirage, core class RC, and am I crazy or is she just way too small? I think in the movie she was definitely a little bigger than this compared to Optimus Prime. And then finally, here we have him alongside the Studio Series leader class Scourge, and wow, these two caused for some of the best action sequences out of the movie in my opinion, and there was such a cold delivery by Optimus Prime against Scourge in the film. It's probably one of the most badass quotes I think Optimus has ever said to a villain in live action movie history. It was just insane. Now, as we get stuck into the transformation, this is really where you guys are going to be able to tell some of the huge differences between this mold and Studio Series 38. So, to kickstart things off with, you are going to want to take these panels, open them up, and then just flip the hands inside, smack these pieces down. Do the exact same here for this side, so flip that section up and just rotate that piece in and snap it into place. Then what I would recommend to do would be to rotate here at the bicep so that the metallic silver section is facing forwards. Just makes things way easier later on, so do the same here for this side. You'll then want to take this section of the smokestack and rotate it here, basically covering up that double elbow joint, so do the same here for this side, bring this piece down, and then we come to the backpack. Much like SS38, it detaches in exactly the same way. The next thing you're going to want to do is use that fake ab crunch, which I showcased previously. Flip this guy around to the back and take the wheels and fold these out. They will kind of very soft click into place, but definitely enough to hold their position when in vehicle mode. And then we can just take this and kind of sit it down to his ass. The next step is to take the truck windows, open these pieces here up like that, and then rotate here at this section. I just think it makes things way easier in getting a grip of this piece, which comes over the top of Prime's head, and then you're going to want to take this whole grey piece and basically shift this inside. So fold that all the way in, make sure you straighten out that ab crunch, and then just take these chest windows and peg them into place. The next thing you're going to want to do is rotate here upwards and then rotate backwards, as basically packed into the forearm is the vast majority of the truck mode. So you're just going to want to open all of these panels here out. Once you reach to about this point, you're then going to want to use that double elbow bend and take the entire shoulder. It does shift back, which I thought was pretty cool, and much like basically any G1-esque Optimus Prime, the forearms do form the majority of the truck mode. So just fold them into the sides. We can then take this panel, and this tiny little lip is going to shoot underneath the sun visor, so snap that section in there. We can then take this piece here and angle it out to the side, take the Autobot logo and just fold this piece down, and do the exact same here for the opposite side. So rotate here at the shoulder, take all of these multi-layered hinge joints and just straighten them out, utilize that double elbow bend, and then just rotate this entire shoulder piece down until the forearm essentially sits inside the front of the cab. Now we're again going to take this lip, slide it underneath that sun visor, so peg this section here into place. Once you've done this, we can then take this little grey section, snap that into place, take the Autobot logo, fold it down, and then the entire front grille will just snap into place like this. Now we're going to turn our attention here to the back, which, going to be honest with you guys, is kind of lackluster in comparison to the conversion which goes on up top. So to kickstart things off with, you are going to want to take these pieces, just attach them like this, which will then allow you to basically angle the shin inwards and then shoot it up all of the way. Now once you've done that, you're then going to want to take this piece and rotate it here all the way to the back. We can then take the foot, angle this piece here inwards. This tiny little tab is going to peg into a notch just like that, and do the exact same here for this side. So loosen all of that up, flick this piece here up to the top, rotate this section here so it's kind of facing the knee joint, take the foot, rotate this section here out to the side, peg that there into place, and this I thought was kind of cool in the way they incorporated the weapons into the transformation, but does kind of look ugly, which you guys will see in a second. So you're going to want to align that peg on the sword to the slot on the inside of the thigh, and then basically this little blue piece here will shoot into Prime's ass. So line that up just like that, and now we can proceed to combine the two halves. So this is where I'd recommend to kind of straighten out the hip joints so you're left with something along the lines of this, because the second that we take this piece and bring it forward, it does reveal a little tab which is going to smack itself into a little slot on the side of the thigh. So peg that in there. We can then snap all of this here into place, come around here to this side and do the exact same. So again, bring this piece here down, make sure that it does tab into place. Can be a little difficult to kind of gauge just exactly where it's going to position itself, but then we can just line all of these tabs and slots up with each other. So we're left with something along the lines of this, and for a few finishing touches, you do just flip out the gas cans, take these tiny little skirt pieces which will peg into these little circular ports, and then finally we bring in Prime's blaster, and there is a tiny little slot there that this here should just very nicely snap into. And bang! Here we have Optimus Prime fully transformed into kind of his off-road truck mode. Now, this to me really does throw me back to the Age of Extinction Studio Series Galvatron, which they released around about this time last year, because from the front, the truck looks pretty decent, but the second you turn it here to the side or the back, unfortunately, it is not the best at all. And this really is where I would have loved them to have basically just taken the engineering for the most part that we saw from the SS-38, as that had a complete clean truck bed. So, yeah, it does kind of suck. I mean, basically it's these pieces and these sections which flare out to the sides which are massively making this kind of downgrade in my personal opinion. I mean, it doesn't look the best at all, you know, with the sword just kind of sticking out the middle. It really does look kind of ugly, but the front of the truck looks awesome. You know, it's sick to finally get an actual separate bull bar piece smacked onto the front of this, because unfortunately with the mainline version it was kind of molded in, but yeah, that looks pretty decent. Again, you know, the windshield and the wheels are the only thing which are taken from that Studio Series 38 version, but I mean, it looks okay. Definitely not the worst truck in the world, but most definitely not the best. And it is unfortunate that they couldn't colour match the undersides of some of these pieces with the top of the roof, because this is the underside of the neck and these are the underside of those shoulder pieces. So yeah, that's a bit of a shame, but it looks okay. Surprisingly, it does roll exceptionally well, so you can definitely get this guy rolling out into battle, which is pretty awesome. And well, I think it does look better than the MPM version, because it doesn't have those ugly cat ears kind of flaring out from the front. Now, as we get stuck into a few truck mode comparisons, here we have Rise of the Beast Prime alongside that SS Bumblebee movie version. And as I mentioned previously, you know, the truck mode for the B movie version, in my opinion, is vastly superior, because the engineering that went on for the legs, whilst it may have come across as being overcomplicated, definitely resulted in a much better looking truck. I mean, as you guys can see, this, at least to me, looks way nicer than what we're seeing from the Rise of the Beast version. And even the top of the cab is slightly more coherent here on the B movie release when in comparison to Rise of the Beast. So if this guy ever does see a re-release, which I'm pretty certain it will in the future, I am hoping that maybe they can do a bit of retooling here to the back and maybe a better job at colour matching here for the top. But from the front, you know, to be honest, I'd say they're pretty much a draw, especially with that sick looking bull bar. Here is how he stacks up alongside the mainline version. So to kind of go back to my earlier point, it's awesome to see that bull bar be a separate piece, as it did kind of get lost in the sculpt for the mainline version. But despite the inaccuracies and differences in bot mode, much like the comparison alongside the Bumblebee movie version, I do think the mainline has a slightly cleaner truck bed than what we're seeing here from the Studio Series version, which is unfortunate, because had they nailed the rear of this truck, undoubtedly this probably would have have been a 10 out of 10 Optimus Prime figure. Here he is compared alongside the leader class Rise of the Beast Scourge. So as you guys can see, surprisingly there is a massive difference. I thought in the movie they were more or less exactly the same scale, so maybe Scourge is a little too oversized, but it absolutely sucks that we never got that scene in the movie where Prime kind of utilizes this bull bar to ram into the side of Scourge, knocking him clean through a wall, as I think that would have been so awesome. I have no idea why they decided to cut that out, but yeah, they don't look too bad alongside each other. Here he is compared alongside the Rise of the Beasts Battle Trap, just to give you guys a good sense of scale. Studio Series Deluxe Class Bumblebee. So yeah, I don't think they scale up too badly. Maybe Prime should be a little bigger when in comparison to the Camaro. Now, as we get stuck into the reverse transformation for Optimus, to start things off with, I'm going to show you guys something which I failed to mention in truck mode. If you wanted to, you could flip the insignias that we've got in robot mode up for vehicle mode, and whilst it does break apart the front of the cab, that is slightly more G1 accurate to have the logos placed here. So, I mean, it's an option, it's something that you guys can do, but basically just raise these pieces up. We can then take the cannon and detach it, come around here to the back of the truck, and basically just loosen all of this up. Once you've done that, we can then take these skirt pieces and just unpeg them and flare them out to the sides. It can be difficult to get a grip of them, but once you've done that, we can then take the gas cans and just snap them in there. The next step is to take these pieces, and because they are so big, you'll have no issues in grabbing them at all, so just kind of gently wiggle them out of their respected tabs and slots, and do the exact same here for this side. We can then spread the legs, take the blade, and just set it here off to the side. The next thing to do is grab the feet, rotate these round here to the front, and do the exact same here for this side. You'll then want to take the back of the leg, rotate this section here downwards, and do the same here for this side. Take the shin pieces and just snap them into place, and then snap the back piece into the side of the leg like that. So do the same here for this side, so snap all of that in. Very simple transformation in comparison to the entire upper chest. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that ultimately they did kind of get a bit lazy with this region, but once you've done that, we can then take the bull bar and the front of the truck, gently wriggle that out of place. We can then take these little grey sections, fold these upwards, and snap them in there. The next thing you're going to want to do is get a hold of these tiny little tabs and kind of flick them out to the sides, just like this, as that will allow you to loosen the arms up, bring them upwards, and then bring them around for robot mode. So do the same here for this side, flare them out to the sides, bring them upwards, and then rotate those around just like that. We can then take the windshield, open this piece here up, and grab this neck piece and raise it here all the way up just like that, and then take this piece, snap it down, and then personally I'd recommend to leave the chest windows open until you rotate this here round to the front. So once you've done that, we can then snap them into place. We'll then want to take the front wheels, fold these round here to the back, and take this section and basically just snap it into place. And these little grooves are going to find themselves smacking dead center between these two bull bars. So just snap that in there. We can then take all of this, collapse it in upon itself. Really nice engineering on these pieces, way better than SS38 in my opinion. And then just rotate these sections here around, take the sides of the shoulders and flip these pieces up, and do the exact same here for this side. And for some finishing touches, just take the hands, flip them out of their hollow cavities, and bang! There you have the Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime back in his robot mode. And so, wrapping up on this review for the buzzworthy Bumblebee exclusive Studio Series Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime. For the most part, I think this is an exceptional figure, you know, maybe the best Studio Series Optimus Prime which has so far been released, especially as far as the robot mode looks. I mean, it is so accurate to the movie. The articulation, for the most part, is great. My only issue would be the way the shoulders have been engineered. You know, I do definitely wish they could have taken the engineering that we saw from SS38, but besides that, exceptional range, transformation, the entire upper half of the figure is very complex, you know, definitely what you would expect from kind of a Revenge of the Fallen era Optimus Prime figure, but the lower half definitely does leave a lot to be desired, and it does unfortunately result in a lacking looking truck mode. I mean, the truck looks okay from the front, but the entire truck bed is just one ugly mess, much like we saw from the Studio Series Galvatron. But is that enough to detract you from buying this figure? Honestly, I'd say absolutely not. I mean, this guy has near enough import level of articulation in terms of some of the poses that you can get out out of him, and definitely the best looking Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime, which can transform, that is currently out there. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this guy down in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with my thoughts? Do you think I'm being too critical? Do you think I'm being too positive? And until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.